Hello, in this video I'm going to be continuing off of my previous video on respondent conditioning. In that video I went over some definitions and a little bit more explanation on what respondent conditioning is. So if you haven't checked that out, it might be helpful to do so. In this video I'm going to go over some examples of respondent conditioning and the diagrams that we would set up for those. So let's get started. First, I have a pretty simple example, one that I'm sure you've probably seen before, but I'm just going to go over it again in the context of what we've gone over. So this is regarding Pavlov's dogs and the salivating when they hear the bell. So in this scenario, the unconditioned stimulus would be the food in their mouth, and the unconditioned response is salivating. The neutral stimulus is hearing the bell. So first we have the unconditioned stimulus, which is food in mouth, which elicits the response of salivating. So this shows the unconditioned stimulus eliciting the unconditioned response. Next, he paired the neutral stimulus, which was hearing the bell, with the food in the mouth, which was the unconditioned stimulus, and together they elicited the unconditioned response of salivating. However, after enough pairings, the neutral stimulus of hearing the bell became a conditioned stimulus on its own, and that alone was enough to elicit the conditioned response of salivating. So hopefully that makes a little sense with the diagrams that we went over earlier. And I'm going to move on to the next example. So next we have, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with the glaucoma test that optometrists usually give. It's usually a blast of air in the eye, and oftentimes it makes the person taking the test have a startle response. But let's say at this optometrist, it's also paired with a tone. So first, the unconditioned stimulus is the air in the eye, which leads to the unconditioned response of the startle response. But let's say now we pair the tone, which is the neutral stimulus. So you hear the tone and you get the air in the eye, which is the unconditioned stimulus, which leads to the unconditioned response of the startle. Eventually, hearing the tone alone becomes a conditioned stimulus, which leads to the conditioned response of startling, and you no longer need the air in the eye to elicit that response. I have a couple more examples here. So another one is a child getting a shot at a doctor. So the unconditioned stimulus here would be getting the shot. The unconditioned response would be an increased heart rate, which usually comes with the fear of getting the shot. And then the neutral stimulus would be the doctor or seeing the doctor. So first you have the unconditioned stimulus getting the shot, which leads to the unconditioned response of an increased heart rate. But if you pair seeing the doctor with getting a shot, which is the neutral stimulus paired with the unconditioned stimulus, and that leads to the unconditioned response of increased heart rate. Eventually, seeing the doctor alone will be enough to lead to the conditioned response of increased heart rate, and the doctor becomes the conditioned stimulus. In our last example, this is related to the TV show The Office. I'm sure many people know the scene where Jim continuously plays the computer chime while giving Dwight a mint, and eventually the computer chime alone is enough to make Dwight ask for a mint. But let's break this down in terms of behavior. So the unconditioned stimulus is the mint in the mouth, and the unconditioned response, we have to do a little bit of assumption and assume that he probably was salivating during this time. And the neutral stimulus in this case was the computer chime. So the mint in the mouth is the unconditioned stimulus, and that leads to the unconditioned response of salivating. But Jim paired the computer chime, or the neutral stimulus, with the mint in the mouth, the unconditioned stimulus, and it elicited the salivating response, which was the unconditional response. But over time, the computer chime alone became the conditioned stimulus and elicited the conditioned response of salivating. Right, so hopefully those examples helped a little bit to show how you would set up a diagram of respondent conditioning, and it helps make a little bit more sense of this topic. Thank you.